So today on the Keelan Yoga podcast are John and Marta from Ashtanga Yoga Nilayam, Singapore. They've been there since about 2019, and recently I had the pleasure of covering for them for a month in the month of August, I think. So it's a pleasure to actually talk to you and learn a bit more about your backgrounds, because we never actually met. They were gone to India, and then I arrived, and then they went, and then I left. So we never actually met and talked properly. So it's a pleasure to have a little chat with you now.
We did briefly meet once when you came before the old Shala once to conduct a workshop.
Yes, I do remember that, obviously. We didn't actually meet. We've never actually had a proper chat, really, have we? Outside me coming as a teacher, which is, a very different situation than just having a chat and finding a little bit about you. And we had a long chat, in fact, before we started, and I thought I'd just save a few questions at least for this. So I suppose the first question is, how did you end up in Singapore? I mean, Marta, I believe you're originally from Europe, right? From Poland, and John from native Kerala, India. So
South India.
We could say somewhere in South India. So how did you? Let me know a little bit about your background, how you met, maybe, and then how you ended up there. That would be wonderful to hear a little bit more about your story.
We had this very beautiful story of our first encounter when we met each other in Mysore. So actually, that was the main reason why I moved to Singapore, where John was already for a year or two prior to our meeting. So it's love and it's yoga, the two things that got us here together.
So you were already teaching in Singapore, John, and then and Marta joined you.
Right. Yeah, I was here for 2 years teaching, and then when I went back to Mysore, I met Marta, and she took up the courage to move to Singapore from Europe all the way after years. Long distance relationship with WhatsApp and things like that. But eventually.
We spent, I think, together about 1 or 2 weeks in Mysore. And it was one of these very few things that happen in your life when you instantly know this is it. So at least for me, at the moment I saw John, and you can tell he's a very handsome guy. It's probably not only me, but I was like, okay, this is it. I need to know this guy better. And I think it took me 2 or 3 days to get a little closer and find common friends so that we could hang out together. And I think it clicked from both sides quite instantly. But then, unfortunately, around 1 week later, John had to go back to Singapore, where he was teaching, a full-time teacher, working super hard, 7 days a week. And I went back to Germany, where I was working as architect, and I was having my small Ashtanga Mysore Berlin at the time, small shala. So 1 year on WhatsApp, I think we met each other once. John came to Berlin and we traveled it was 2017. We traveled to Copenhagen to practice with Sharat. So that was our week together after knowing each other for a week. And then a few months later, I was like, okay, I'm packing all my luggage, I'm selling all my belongings, and I'm moving over to Singapore to start our, beautiful yogic life. So it was quite, I would say, I don't want to say desperate, but quite unique and quite powerful encounter in our lives that literally changed us and got us where we are here now. But it's one of these things that probably doesn't happen twice in your life. And either you follow it and you go fully into it, or you regret the rest of your life. So we both went.
Seeing her literally felt like I've known her since a very long time. Even though I saw her first time in Mysore, it didn't feel like I'm meeting a stranger. It literally felt like I'm seeing this person that I knew already before.
Yeah, I remember the first trip. We went to Idli Man for a breakfast. That's where I managed to convince him, come sit on the back of my bike. And he's laughing until now because I couldn't really drive a scooter very well. But I was so desperate to get him behind and drive him from the old Shala and Gokulam to the Idli Man. And people were like, "Oh, are you guys who've been knowing each other for a while?" And I was like, "No, we are just actually talking for the first time in our lives." But I think there was this connection. Despite
Absolutely.
we are very different, we are a bit like yin yang. We kind of complement each other, and I think there's the fundamental things that we have in common. Like we don't even have to discuss that. We might argue about many unimportant and unessential things in life, but we kind of really kind of share the essence of, like spirituality and like deeper thoughts. We don't even have to talk. We are just there together. So, and that's something that we've felt instantly. So yeah, love at the first sight, as they say. And that's how then eventually I moved to Singapore and also tried my luck working for many various yoga studios until we both got courage to open our own yoga shala in 2019. And then we've been like working, teaching, running Mysore program in 2 different places until actually just a couple of months ago, we managed to open our actual beautiful shala, which is like a fully dedicated to the teachings of Ashtanga, to what we share, to like the effect of the trust and love between us and our community and our students, who supported us immensely in the journey and who helped us to open this shala. So it's been like 5 years, a little more than that, of like struggling and trying to reach the point where we are now. So I must say we're quite lucky and quite
Maybe
grateful.
we are jumping the train here a little bit for you, but I
I appreciated hearing the story. And I think I think it's one of the first times I've heard a kind of longer form kind of love story on the podcast. So it's really nice, and it's really similar to Teresa and I actually met at Purple Valley, and really we we were staying in the same house straight away, so we were kind of living together, and then from that moment onwards we never have not lived together. It's like it's kind of crazy. So. And apparently she informs me we're always 10 years married now.
Students know you better than us. You've spent so much time with our students, our assistants in our shala, and they had so much to tell about you, which we actually didn't know. So we learned about you from our students, which was a nice experience.
They love
it was wonderful to come to the shala, and it was clear that you'd built up a beautiful community there, to be honest. One of the most unique and dedicated communities I've ever had the pleasure to work with. Have you had those students?
They'll be happy to hear that, Adam.
Yeah, they really were. They really were. And I'm fairly down to earth and honest about things. Have some of those students been with you from the whole time? Have they, or have
some
they?
of them, yes. And it's been organically growing community, and it's people are really. I think it's a community that has built itself, and we are just kind of witnessing this growth and transformation of this whole process that takes along with it. And I feel I have to give a shout out to all the people who helped us open out this new space that we have. If it wasn't for them, I think they truly love being in this space and being in that Mysore room together. And in many ways I feel like we are literally living a dream that we wish for once, and it's manifesting right in front of us, and we're just witnessing as it unfolds, and it's beautiful to see that.
Yeah, I really feel that there is a sense of community amongst the students as well. They constantly support each other, and when I was there, they really helped with the running of the place. Help with looking after it and checking people in and opening and closing, and they know where the air conditioning is when I was getting really hot. And I say every morning, the first time getting into Singapore, and you haven't been in the East anymore, especially in Singapore, and you climb up the stairs. And I'm just not used to it coming from Europe again. I was like, oh my God, put that air conditioning on just for a second and then we'll turn it off again. And I just couldn't until I buy some more appropriate clothes that are like
to get used to.
Yeah, to get used to it. I'm used to it now, but I mean, coming from London to Singapore, it was a shock.
I think it took me also 2 years to get used to to stop sweating on every occasion. I still do, but a little less. One good thing is that I find the practice easier when the weather is so warm and humid. Like joints feel more lubricated and kind of body goes more easily into certain postures, comparing to life in Berlin, which I had, or Poland, But yeah, it's definitely a challenge whenever we have friends coming from Europe visiting. They like 24 hours and they are, full in struggle because it's really tough.
It is like just going to, when you go to Mysore, so you're just like, wow, it's a different practice. If you've been in Europe, and then you're in the Mysore, in that, certainly the old Shard, especially when you're all close together as well, and it was very hot. And it's just like, wow, this is how it's meant to feel. It's also a risk because you can kind of push yourself too far as well, so you're so warm. But and I think after a while you have to kind of get into a certain way with it, because otherwise you end up depleting yourself because you're just sweating so much every day, and it's like you have to find a way you slow down and
keep drinking.
Drink lots of coconuts. Anyway, how did you both get into the yoga in the first place? We kind of jumped the gun and got halfway through the story, but I never learned who were your teachers and how. I mean, obviously you spent a lot of time with Mysore and you're very dedicated to Shirachi and the Mysore style. But where did you learn first of all, and how did you build up into going to Mysore? If I could ask both of you.
So I think I was lucky that in my school they had yoga, and I started practicing when I was 9 years old. And then I continued for 6-7 years regularly until the end of school days. Initially there was this wonderful, inspiring teacher called Prakash. I still remember him so dearly, and he has touched and impacted my life. When I look back at it now, I realize that he, as a kid, being able to do yoga and not understand its power, but only after so many years, when I look back at it, I realize that it was so beautiful to have this opportunity to learn from such an inspiring guy. And I don't know where he is now, what he does, anything, no details, nothing whatsoever. But
later, or something.
Yeah. Possibly. I've tried many times Googling him, but couldn't find the details. Anyway, and then later during my pre-university and college, I think I had not done any form of yoga for another 6-7 years, and then later after that, yoga found me in a way. And I was initiated into one of this Gurukul, where I was in this Gurukul learning to teach yoga for 2 to 3 months. And then I was teaching yoga in Delhi for 5 years. And it was just, I think yoga found me rather than me finding yoga. And yoga has always found me one way or another. And I was lucky for that. And during this 5 years in Delhi, while teaching, is when I found Ashtanga. That was, I think, somewhere around 2012. And I started learning with Ajay Tokas in Delhi.
Oh yeah, I know Ajay.
He was one of my first teachers. And then I made a trip to Kerala, and then Ajay told me that you have to go to Mysore. And then
yes, I can imagine he would say that. Yeah.
And I guess there was no turning back after that. And Mysore is magical. Like everyone knows it already. Just being there has changed my life completely, and I am who I am because of this practice of Ashtanga, and I am truly grateful that I found this path, and I'm so happy that I'm sharing what I love the most. And it's been a dream journey for me to be where I am at this moment. But at the same time, I feel like it is sort of manifested unconsciously or subconsciously. And
I think it's the same with a lot of life, isn't it? You look back and you just think, how did that all happen, really? It just seemed to happen like without you trying at all. But funnily enough, AJ, I remember AJ inviting me to Delhi around 2012 when he was in Mysore. He said, come to teach a workshop in Delhi. So I could have met you at that time, but I can't remember. I think I was done with India after a number of months in Mysore. I think I just wanted to go home to London.
I did
so
meet
I didn't go to Delhi. And then.
Kino, though, in Delhi. She came for a quick workshop for a week or something. And yeah, she was one of the first teachers that I attended the workshop with. That was way long ago. And this was even before going to Mysore, I think. And Kino doesn't host those kind of workshops in India. I was super lucky to have her come there for a week and attend that. Yeah.
Do you, when you mentioned it, the yoga changed your life, do you think there's a difference, if I could just ask before moving to Marta, between when you started the Hatha Yoga and the Ashtanga? Did you notice a particular difference? You said it made you everything you are now.
Yeah.
Was that coming gradually, or did you notice a shift when you started the practice
Absolutely.
of Ashtanga Yoga?
I think there was this immediate shift, and even the very first time I started practicing the connection with the breath and moving the body, and I felt some sort of presence or being alive fully in myself. After my first few Ashtanga and Mysore practices, I was like, I've never felt anything like this before. It was so profound that I knew immediately, like, okay, this is what I need to be learning more and practicing. And there is this thing about Ashtanga, right? And I think it's if you love it, you love it. If not, you are the opposite. You don't want nothing to do with Ashtanga.
Well, I was going to, it kind of segues into what I was going to say. How is that different to your traditional, let's say, more traditional training in Hatha Yoga, in India? Because people will always think, an Indian person doing Ashtanga, it's like, surely there would have been a more traditional yoga you were doing before. Like, how does it, how do the two relate to each other?
Totally. So, like I mentioned before, I was in school practicing Hatha, and that was beautiful. But then when I was starting to teach, it wasn't really Hatha. It was something called artistic yoga, and it was sort of a weight loss program. And it wasn't something that I resonated with very much. So I guess finding Ashtanga was pretty obvious that I would move towards that direction. Being every time when I conducted a class, people always say that, oh, his classes are different. He doesn't do this weight loss much. He's more into Hatha style, and I still love Hatha classes a lot. I think I still teach Hatha classes time to time, and I love the fact of inclusivity that it has from people who are a little intimidated about Mysore and self-practice and Ashtanga. So I love still holding space for Hatha every now and then.
What did you call the style of class? Was it weight loss?
Yeah, it was.
That's like I used to do yoga, for the weight loss. That's like how you get them started.
Let's catch up with Marta now quickly, and hear a little bit about your story, how you got into yoga.
I think for me, it's exactly opposite to how they were for John, because for John, he was just manifesting things in his life. I think he never really applied for any job ever in his life. There were jobs always coming to him, And for me, the journey, I feel like wherever I reached was always a lot of hard work. Like the manifestation, I think, was not my thing. But I started from a little different point because I was never really a physical person as a teenager or young adult. I was more of the intellectual person who would spend a lot of time alone, reading books, researching, studying, and that was kind of my field of interest and my free time, way of spending free time. So I came across different books, and I was initially mostly interested in spirituality and this overall quest of like, what is the purpose, like why I'm here, what I'm doing. And it became pretty soon obvious for me that me, as like all of us, we just want to be happy in life. And I realized that I was never happy in my life, and I realized it quite like, I don't know, as a 16 or 18 years old girl. So then the physical practice of yoga and different style of meditation and pranayama, which was mostly self-taught, because I just had these books. I have some books of Iyengar. I had asana books. So I was learning all the kriya, pranayama, asana. Like people ask me, like, how did I learn Nauli? I learned it from the book when I was 16, because there was this drawing, like, like suck the abdomen in and then push the rectus up. And that's how I learned things. And until I then found at some point some basic hatha classes in my town, which I started attending and going through the Iyengar style, because that was back then popular in Poland. So I was initially Iyengar based and working on pranayama, working on meditation. Then in my early 20s, I started traveling to India. So that was still a little bit of Iyengar. And then I added on Vipassana. And then only in my early 20s, I came across Ashtanga. So that was one of my Iyengar teachers who just said, just go and try the lead class. I tried and I completely hated it. But again, I had this kind of thing, okay, good things don't come easy for me in life. I always have to kick myself to get where I need to. So that kind of motivated me. So I was like, okay, let's keep trying. I'm not a person who gives up easily. If I start something, I usually keep going. So I kept doing this full primary lead classes, being, absolutely not ready. It's the worst thing you can do to yourself, but I had no choice. Until then, later I moved to Germany and I came across the Mysore style, so I went and confidently into a Mysore class thinking I can do Ashtanga so well. I've been doing these lead classes for a couple of years now. And then I realized I don't even know how to do Surya Namaskar, So it was a very humble awakening. And again, I had to start learning from scratch. So yeah, it's been quite a few years now that I've been doing it. And then I moved to Germany.
Who were you learning with? Who were you learning with in Germany?
I was in Berlin. So at the time, there were two yoga studios. There was the Andrea, who was following Nancy Gilgoff and David Garrigues. So that was one lineage. And the other one was Grisha, who is...
Oh, Grisha, I know Grisha.
Richard Freeman.
Yeah. Richard Freeman, yeah.
Practiced with each of them for some time. Until later, I actually found my teacher, and my dearest teacher in Berlin was Matthew, who is
Matthew Vollmer
from UK. Matthew Vollmer.
Yeah, he's very good. Yeah.
Really lucky to practice with him for I think 2 or 3 years when he lived in Berlin.
Oh wow, yeah.
Quite short. So that was actually the first teacher that I felt okay, this is Ashtanga. That's how I'm learning it the way I need it, because he was more, I would say, traditional. So stopping you at the pose, letting you work, experience your mind, stopping me, at Ekapada for a year and then Pincha for another year. I took it as a blessing because it was a beautiful journey or kind of, introspection and seeing what I need and having enough time to build strength instead of just, focusing on getting more and more done on the mat. So that was really beautiful lesson. And then I also started teaching in Berlin and had my tiny shala for a couple of years. That was more or less the journey. And I feel we were just speaking with John about it the other day. And I had this kind of reflection that my journey started from spirituality and went through this kind of hard Ashtangi, for a couple of years. And then recently, softening a little bit, going into motherhood and discovering the 7th series where the focus on the asana is a little more gentle, a little more relaxed, going more into chanting and again back to pranayama since the past maybe 2 years.
Yeah, I think I saw you'd gone to more recently to learn with Paul Dallahan, hadn't you?
Yes.
You've done some breathwork with Paul?
Yes.
Yeah. That sounds nice.
I feel that's kind of the practice that served me better. I mean, I still do my asana and I still, stick more or less to the series that I've been doing, but adding on a little bit of more release and a little more gentleness into the practice, and instead of being, into this just focus okay, I have to do my full intermediate today, I have to learn another pose from advanced, and being driven by that. I'm just like, okay, I just allow myself to relax and I just do what feels better today.
It's funny that she started saying this by mentioning that things didn't come easy to her and manifestation doesn't work. Just a couple of days ago, she was telling me that I have to be careful what I wish for. The universe actually listens.
The Midas touch, anything you think of just turns up. John, I was going to a question for you. How do you relate to your upbringing and the background of yoga that you would have experienced as a young person to the Ashtanga, which is a kind of modern and rather westernized form of yoga, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is there anything you might say about that? Does it correlate, or does it feel strange? Or does it feel different?
As a young person, what I learned, I think I learned a lot more yoga through my family than the asana practice that I did with my teacher in school. I guess I was brought up in a Catholic upbringing, and my mom used to go to church almost every day. Father is a counselor in church and stuff like that. So I've had Sundays studying Bible, catechism. It was like a proper Catholic upbringing. But then they have taught me that life, the spiritual aspect of life. But then I was always kind of, you can say, the black sheep or the black wolf of the family who discovered many different things. But I always was curious to learn more, understand more. Even the fact that I speak this English surprises to many of my friends and family. I learned, to be honest, to speak English just watching good Hollywood movies, because I love watching movies. So about your question of how it's different in Ashtanga, I guess Ashtanga is mostly appreciated by people from outside India rather than in India. When you look at it, people in India, now the yoga is slowly reviving back. And Ashtanga is slowly getting more and more popular, and there are more and more Indians practicing, which is beautiful. I'm so happy for that. But it can also be, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I guess Indians don't like much of discipline and something that's too hard for them. Probably because of that, Ashtanga wasn't so popular, but now it's slowly reviving back. But also because of the yoga day and stuff like that, the yoga is becoming more and more available to people rather than just weight loss as it was before. So yeah, that's a good sign. I don't know if I answered your question there, but yeah,
I think it's a complicated subject. I've done little bits with other native Indians as well, like as to how it feels, and it's kind of like having yoga reintroduced in a more hybrid fashion, which ostensibly at least seems to be more asana based and less about a whole way of life, which obviously anyone that's been to India recognizes that is something which is to do with a whole way of living, dharma, i.e. rather than just performing a few asanas early in the morning. But to that end, maybe my next question, which Marta can start with, it would be how do you relate the philosophy behind yoga, which I know you're both very interested in, and you're very, very keen, both of you, on living a yoga lifestyle to the fullest degree, with the asana practice? How do you teach that, or can you teach that? I mean, it's a wide question, it's a big question, I don't expect a whole answer to it, don't worry. But how do you try and convey that to your students through the practice of yoga asana? Does it relate to yoga asana, and how do you relate it to your teaching?
I think there is much to say about it, because, well, I feel the first misconception is, which I'm recently or maybe all of us, we know it, like all of diehard Ashtangis. I think we know it somewhere deep at our heart. We don't want to admit it, like you won't reach samadhi by practicing asana. No. I feel the asana is definitely a wonderful practice, but I feel it's like a gateway, it's like an entry level towards the deeper self, towards the deeper quest for self-realization. And I think, of course, working with the body, working with the breath, we learn how to develop kindness. We learn how to understand our body. We can heal our body in a wonderful way. And we start getting deeper. We start observing our behavioral patterns, our reactions, our self-judgment or judgment to a person on the mat next to us. But I think it's just a very entry level that every practitioner gets for themselves. We as a teachers, of course, we support that by encouraging the drishti, by encouraging the breath, focus on the bandha and all this internal processes. But I believe that for each of us, it happens at our own pace, at a different stage. Some people get there right away. Some people start practicing Ashtanga and day one, they go 6 days a week, respecting moon days, observing the inner cycle and so on. And they are there. Some people take years to even be able to have inhale for 2 seconds and exhale for 2 seconds, the very basic balancing breath. So for everyone it's different. I think it's something that has to be experienced. That's something that you can't really teach, but practitioner has to grow into that. And we as a teachers, we are just allowing them or like giving them space to kind of be on this internal quest. And then for each of us, as we practice more and more, some of us start going, a little bit into the devotional aspect of practice, which for me, it's not necessarily about being religious or highly spiritual, but finding more integrity in your life, like answering the question, does my work or do the relationships I'm in are in accordance to my values in life, When we start thinking about that, we often realize okay, maybe not always, finding the dedication, the practicing with care, doing whatever we do, putting our heart into it. Because not everyone has to be a yoga teacher or 7 days a week diehard practitioner to be Ashtangi, in my understanding. Because whatever you do, you can, be a barista or you can be a policeman. But if you do it with care and with dedication, this is your yoga. And finding the discipline to whatever is your practice, be it 5 minutes of pranayama or 10 minutes japa every morning, finding the discipline to do it continuously every day. Not to give up. There's no, what we always tell our students, our assistants, there's no holiday from yoga. You take it with you, It doesn't have to be physically that you have to do your full primary every day, but you carry it inside. So I feel this is something that we convey to the students, to practitioners. So if they are able, if they're interested, they get onto this journey with us, and we are there to kind of open the gate and show that's the direction according to us. But if there is any particular way I can share the spirituality through asana, no, I don't think so.
But the philosophy, I guess it's a natural progression, because people come to practice. People are coming from various different walks of life. You can't impose things on them. When they are ready, I think they will seek for it. And everyone has a different journey to make towards the other aspects of yoga. And
I think that's as you say, there's no holiday from yoga, because you can't say, oh, I haven't got all the kit I need to do the practice. Obviously, unfortunately, whenever you go on a holiday, you still even if you don't have a yoga mat, you still haven't really got many excuses to keep up some kind of practice.
We haven't been in a proper holiday, John and me, for decades.
Mentioning about a proper holiday,
because whenever we travel, we either travel to teach, or we travel to study, or we travel to Mysore. I've never been for 1 week of lying on the beach, or so. I would love to, I'm dreaming. It's not happening, because whenever we go, there is some yoga thing, some part of some learning, some teaching.
Somewhat, I think it's a certain period of time where it has to try and rebalance that up, because I kind of felt like I went to India for years and years. People say, "Oh, you must know the country so well," blah blah blah, and I go, "Well, not really." Unfortunately, I just kept going to Mysore. They go, "Well, where have you been?" I go, "Well, Bangalore, Mysore, Mumbai." Yeah, it's embarrassing. So now the second half of my life, I'm just trying to rebalance the imbalance that was there in maybe just being a little.
But you still teach 90% of time wherever you travel, right?
I do, and Teresa says to me, "Don't always teach. Don't go somewhere and don't teach for a while." But then I get in touch with people and say, "Oh, shall I?" Or they get in touch with me, and then I end up doing the teaching again. And she says, "Why did you agree to it? We should just have a holiday for a week." But the thing is, it's nice to meet people, isn't it? And when you go to a place, you want to meet people. So it is a great place. It is a great way to meet people. Just like when you go into Singapore, it's like I don't really remember much of Singapore, and at the end of the day, you're in a city, aren't you? At the end of the day, it's a city, and like any other. But you meet nice people, or you meet people, and and that's what obviously I remember all the time I spent with your lovely students, which made the trip, rather than just going and I'm going to go to the where is it, that big hotel in Singapore with the go see that thing with the pool and the roof and all that stuff, it's who cares about that? We had,
like what John mentioned, like either you love it or you hate it. Like once you step into Ashtanga, you just can't get out of it, because like
there's something, isn't there? Yes,
it's all the time there. And I think that's the beauty, like whole life. Like that's why, our understanding of like, what does it mean to be Ashtangi? Like I sometimes hear people like, "Oh, I used to be Ashtangi and I'm not anymore." And it's like, what do you mean? Like, you mean you don't practice the primary series anymore? That means you're not Ashtangi anymore. And I think for me, the meaning and the understanding of being a yogi, being a practitioner is so much broader than just doing the rigid sequence of postures, because Ashtanga, as the name says, right, we have the 8 limbs. And if you cut on one, but you're at heart yogi and you still believe into the yamas, into niyamas, you practice other things, I think you can be still Ashtangi. So that's why I think like, even if probably in 10, 20, 30 years, I'll be doing less and less posture, but I don't think I would ever dare to say I'm not an Ashtangi anymore. Even if my practice is like to sun salutation and cat and cow afterwards, I will still believe this is my Ashtanga practice, because that's my understanding, much broader than just this few series that we were taught,
I think you can give yourself more than 10 years. You're a bit young, yeah. I think that's a bit pessimistic, but I'll challenge you both on that end. So you're still teaching the sequences. There must be something in the sequences themselves, or there's something in the yoga themselves. Like I often get into this loop myself where I think, well, potentially if yoga is about consistency and about mind stability and about, dedication to something broader or larger than oneself, these kind of qualities, then anyone can do it. Or then, then getting up and playing the piano, if you did it every day in the morning, could do it. Or, or going out to the gym every day, could do it if you just dedicate. But is there something different in the asanas themselves? And then, obviously you're teaching Ashtanga Yoga, which is qualified by this dedication to specific set sequencing, So what do you think about that? Is there something special in asana, or is there something special in the sequencing?
I think sequence is very intelligent and it's beautiful, but then it shouldn't be shared or taught in a dogmatic way, is what I truly believe in. And I think this learning and understanding came through my own going through this dogma initially, and having my own hardships with having a few ordeals of having 2 knee surgeries and a lung surgery before that and stuffs like that. Having to be being taken the asanas, or the easy asana was easy for me in certain ways, but maybe because of the Indian body type that I was, tall and slender. But then when I was in the prime, or when I felt like I could almost progress more and more and more, and then I had this drawback, that made me truly realize that, okay, truly it's not about asana, but then the process of rebuilding, that humbling journey that you make towards knowing yourself better, creates some sort of compassion and kindness, not only towards yourself, but towards the people that come to you. And you're just there to share this joy of being able to connect to your own breath and being in your body and being present with that, and not being so strictly rigid about this is the only right sequence. Of course, there are certain guidelines to be followed, but not blindly, I would say. Depending on the person who is there, we can modify or use some props if necessary and things like that. This is my understanding of my own journey that I made, and I think we both gradually move towards this direction of being more receptive and embracing people as they are when they come onto the mat, because everybody at the end of the day wants to be seen, heard, and they just come into practice to feel good and not to be told off,
Exactly. You did those knee surgeries, were they through as a result of Ashtanga or otherwise?
That was his other hobby.
Actually, it was. I used to be very athletic in my school days. I used to play a lot of basketball and stuff like that. So after starting to teach yoga, I had this 10 years of break where I did not play a single game or even throw ball. But then in Singapore, out of the blue, I just went into the neighborhood one day and I played with the kids there, and I just landed wrong, and my body went one way and knee went another way. I tore quite a few ligaments, I think ACL, MCL, and meniscus, all three together. So I had 2 reconstruction surgeries for that, and it was very helpful. But it's how do I say it? It was helpful, but never perfect. If somebody sees me practice, unless I tell them that I had a knee surgery, they wouldn't figure out, and that's the power of Ashtanga again.
Well,
it's beautiful. But then that's
quite a serious knee injury there. Yeah. Amazing you recovered from that. You're right.
It's still work in progress, and it's a constant work in progress. I always have to be mindful of what I do, and constantly trying to meet my body where it is, rather than putting expectations of what I could do and what I want to do and things like that. And this is basically what we share. It's just our own experiences.
And I think having this tool, this beautiful, very powerful tool of the daily practice, is the most healing tool we can give ourselves. Coming back to the practice, the same was for me. I also had knee surgery, and then, having a baby, and this process of coming back is so beautiful if you know your body so well, and if you know how to heal your body by yourself. Nowadays people are so afraid of their health and, getting injured. First thing we do, we run to the doctor with especially in, places like Asia, people just go to the doctor with anything, because they don't trust their own intuition. They don't trust the healing power of the body. And of course, at some point we need the surgery. At some point we need to see the doctor. But like before that, just having the ability to estimate how is my body? Do I really need to panic, or I can just observe, stay with the breath, let the body, transform on its own. Wonderful thing. And I think that these years of the dedicated, Ashtanga practice, at least for me, if I didn't have this rigorous and very disciplined practice for more than 15 years, I would probably didn't get this knowledge of my own body. And, having that background, I can say, okay, maybe now I can let go on certain asana. Maybe I can let go a little bit on being so rigid and stiff, because I have the foundation, which I believe it's so helpful for all of us.
That being said, I think, Adam, I should mention that Ashtanga is not what made me heal through these surgeries. It is absolutely prehab and rehab and a lot of strength work.
I was going to ask you if you could recommend anything or share any part of your journey. Yeah, for people so many people have had knee surgeries, often due to Ashtanga Yoga, let's say, me included. I've had both my knees done in the first 2 years, probably, or 3 years of Ashtanga practice.
I think a lot of Ashtangis have knee troubles because we don't really learn to engage the muscles in the legs, and we just, because of the tightness in the hip, we just dump everything onto the knee. But yes, having strength work is really helpful for us to regain back the knee. Sorry, my daughter is just
That's all right. It's an organic conversation. Hello. she can come on as well. So, John, you were saying, I mean, do you have any, or do you still do, or did you do any strength training for the legs or the knees, particularly kind of like gym kind of esque lifting weights and that kind of thing?
Yes, I did. And I still go back to it time to time when I feel some sort of pain or anything. I think I rely back into strength work because I truly believe having stronger quadriceps, hamstrings, and glutes support the knee a lot, and I have no pain when I do these strength work. So I take a few steps back in my practice and I go back to the strength training, and then I come back into the practice, and it's truly magical. Like Marta was saying, our bodies have this magnificent power to heal themselves. We just need to provide and listen to these intuitions, what the body is saying, and just do what is needed then and there, rather than pushing through it. I think that's yoga. That's what the practice teaches us in the end of the day.
But I think I've seen you on posts and things still doing kind of advanced lotus work, even with that. So you've recovered to that degree that you've been able to. I mean, it's a horrific injury you suffered. You'd been able to get the lotus back to that degree, which is outstanding, and I think it speaks as some kind of motivation or encouragement for people that are suffering with the knee. The
surgeons did tell me that I would never be able to do stuff that I used to, but I proved them wrong.
Yeah, absolutely, you did, because it's as I say, it's not just a torn meniscus. You suffered quite a serious knee injury there. So it's incredible. We don't claim to provide any advice as to whether you should get your knees surgically operated on or not, but all of us have, I think you obviously, John, had some success there, and I always say that I've had, the knee doesn't have much of a blood supply, so if you tear the meniscus, it's very hard to heal the thing, and it does. We're not going to go into meniscus surgery, and John had more of the meniscus surgery than just, he had more of a surgery than just meniscus, but for the meniscus to heal in its place is very difficult. So what they do is they shave a little bit of that meniscus off, and then it often makes you're able to do those things that just cause a kind of pinching or a sharp pain in the knee. Then and that was my experience, is that it did sort out my knees, but I think I had a small tear. If I had it now at the age of 44, I'm not sure I would do the surgery now when I was older, but then 22, it did heal. So because I go through that a little bit because people are always asking about knee surgery in Ashtanga, unfortunately. On that note, and it's not exactly a segue, just the final bit I'd like to ask you is, how do you involve the yoga in your lifestyle? How does because I know that you're very specific about doing the chanting and doing involving yoga as a whole life and living your life with the yoga. Is there anything you can say about how you involve it in?
I wish we were able not to involve it so much.
I think that's not true. But having this beautiful being, daughterless Isabel, is the highest form of yoga there is, I guess. And we must have done something right in this life of us to receive such a blessing. She's our guru. She's teaching us what yoga truly means. It's I think life now revolves around this tiny creature. Having a community whom we can share what we love most, and sharing all these different aspects of chanting, and sutras and the workshops, and sharing just beyond the basic asanas is again our own swadhyaya that we do. To share, we have to always constantly learn, and it's an ongoing process, and we are constantly work in progress. And I think that's the beauty of yoga, being able to teach through your own self experiences and self journey.
I feel for us it's so much about giving back. I feel we are both so blessed through this practice, that now we feel like teaching and sharing, and exactly what you asked, what you mentioned, sharing not only the asana but sharing more and more on the spiritual side. We had now on Monday a beautiful Ganesha Puja on the occasion of Ganesha Chaturthi. And, this small kind of gestures, which people, of all religions are very interested to see and to experience. More and more of our students want to learn pranayama. So going from the gross to subtle, that's our journey. And I feel that's also where we take our students along.
Yeah. I know I've seen some of your the opening homa that you did and the pujas, and it's a unique program that you offer there. And,
it's our hobby, It's not that we feel it has to be done, but for me, whenever I start chanting, I just feel like arriving home, even more than while doing asana. So I just feel it's so beautiful and makes me so grounded and calm, and I just love to share it with others.
Not do it for Ganesha Chaturthi, because I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, Adam. You have seen this beautiful Ganesha idol in our shala.
Yes.
So there is the story that I keep sharing to our students of when we were hunting for the shala space to move into. We have been looking for it for a long time to find a beautiful space to move in. But then when me and Martha were just walking around our neighborhood, Little India, which is where we are in Singapore, we found this beautiful Ganesha statue, and we immediately fell in love with him, and we said, okay, we have to bring him home. He will be in our new shala that we don't have yet. And we got him home, and literally within 1 week, we not only saw this new space, we signed the agreement to move in, and it was like him moving all the obstacles to open up this space. And
it was another manifestation in John's life, Ganesha and the shala arrived.
I think that's some things are just beyond you. You just are surprised of how life works, and everything is a learning, and everything is so beautiful if you are receptive enough to.
And if you're in tune with your own dharma, with your own path, I think then the life starts unfolding and the doorway starts opening towards what is actually supposed to happen. So that's our kind of encouragement. That's what we also share with our students, like find your own truth and follow it, because only I think then we are kind of manifesting the actual teachings of yoga, like when we start focusing inwards and observing this change within ourselves, and then, making sometimes maybe not easy decisions in life, which though bring us closer to our true self. And I think that's when the things start manifesting.
This trust and belief comes in oneself when we are actually doing asanas also. Even, we learn to trust ourselves more, believe in our own strength, doing things once we thought was impossible, and getting over those fears on the mat, which can be small things, a simple back bend or some standing pose, a balancing pose, learning to find balance. Balancing is something that we are not all born with, which is something we develop, and we, it's something that we create for ourselves. And so is life, I guess. We make it.
I think for me, it was just like having confidence that I could do something and keep to something every day. You know, because that's a lot of it, isn't it? It's like trust yourself that you're going to kind of commit to something and then you'll follow it through. which is a big thing in life now, especially when you can do all different things, all the time, and you want to do all these different things. And it's like, well, you're going to commit to doing one thing every day, and then you get that integrity, that self-integrity. I'm going to say I'm going to do it, I'm going to keep at it, and you start to put a trust in. And for me, anyway, that was it. Trust myself that I could keep to one thing, and then I trusted myself more and more, just being able to keep to that one thing that was really hard. I could pick the hardest thing, and then do it, and then keep to it. And you build up a lot of strength in doing that, But the chanting, I did do it for a while, but then I had this crisis when Lakshmi in Mysore, the chanting guy, they got wind of the fact I'd memorized these chants, right? Because I happen to have a very good memory. But then he said, okay, come down to the basement and into the garage, and we'll go through the chants. And because you obviously had this aptitude for memorization. And then he heard what I was actually saying, and my pronunciation was so bad that in traditional Indian style, he told me off so much that I never recovered from that time onwards. And chanting for me was then I was unfortunately a little bit put off from that point on. That's my sad story of chanting. But maybe one day, Marta, you can get me back into it, in a more Western style friendly teaching, where you're going to say I'm doing really well. You say I'm doing really well, and I'll be happy, and I might carry on. I just wanted to ask you for the final roundup. I always ask these questions, and I saw John giving your daughter. It looked like a little bit of coffee there, but I was. It's tea. The thing was, it's moving on to my last question, which is an easy one to answer. Give me a guilty pleasure and an inspiration, both of you. And I was just a funny story, because when I was in Singapore at their house, right, John's got this coffee machine, and often people say, "Oh, my guilty pleasure is coffee," right? And my guilty pleasures are many things are guilty pleasure for me. One of them was coffee. And the John's coffee machine really gave me my comeuppance, we'll say, because I came off a flight from London, so I had the jet lag. I was jet lagged, and then I drank some coffees from John's machine. And I never used it again after that second day, because it's a really nice. He's got this proper coffee machine there. He's like a barista machine, right? And so I was making these coffees, and maybe I had about three of them, maybe three, maybe more even, because I'm very guilty of indulging in pleasures. And then I didn't sleep for 2 days. The first 2 days of teaching, I could not sleep. Combined with the jet lag and all the coffees, which were strong, I had a terrible, terrible time. So ever since then, my guilty pleasure of coffee has been somewhat tempered down from this experience.
Not good.
Yeah, that's the thing. Any pleasure that you take to extremes, there you go. That's the result of it. But anyway, it's a long-winded question there. Can you both give me a guilty pleasure and an inspiration? For you both,
I think
to round it up.
The coffee machine is actually my guilty pleasure, which
it's yours. It's not John's even. I somehow thought it was John's. Right, there you go.
When I was pregnant, that was the COVID time, and I had this many crazy cravings during pregnancy. One was coffee, and the other was beer. I usually, I don't drink alcohol, but being pregnant, I was really badly craving for beer, which was funny thing. But I was also craving for coffee, and because it was COVID and we couldn't really go out and drink coffee, we thought like, okay, let's this coffee machine for Marta so she can fulfill her.
We also got her some beer too.
I also got some free beer from one of my students. But I was actually recently really proud of myself. I managed to cut on coffee for like 3 weeks and didn't have it as a first thing in the morning. So that was my big success. But
I think it's a good thing. Even Sharat apparently drinks matcha now, not coffee anymore. Did you hear that?
Yeah. No, but I think,
I should mention that I am not a big coffee person. I do drink coffee when I get it. If I need to, I can even drink just before going to sleep, and I can fall asleep. It absolutely doesn't affect me for some reason, and I don't crave for it. If I have it, I'm happy to drink it. If I don't have it, I'm fine too. But I do have many other.
It's one thing that he never gets addicted to.
do have many other guilty pleasures. I think one of which recently is I am going back to playing basketball quite regularly.
That you should be guilty about that. That's a liability.
Don't know how you want to aim it. I mean, it is indeed a contact sport, but I find so much joy in just being on the court, and I feel more alive in some ways, more maybe quite similar to even proper practice with full presence. I think it's somewhere up the same level playing ball for me, because I completely disconnect. I'm just there, and it's beautiful. And my inspiration, I think, is just my wife, Marta. She is.
We start and finish with the love story.
She is the backbone and everything of what we are right now with the Shala and everything. She puts her heart and hard work into so many things that we are doing and trying to share. And and I think she's a true inspiration for me in many ways, which you might not even know.
So nice.
Now, Marta, you have to say the same, don't you? But apart from John,
no, I actually
obviously
something else.
Yeah.
No, I think for me the inspiration. I mean, of course, my husband's been always my inspiration and my source of faith that you can manifest things. And it's actually thanks to John that I realized that when you live your authentic, true life, things just happen. You just need to ask for them, and they start coming. It was not like that before I met him, but things started coming true. The dreams started happening at some point. But my personal inspiration is just to be always a seeker and always a student. No matter what we do, it's yoga or it's any other field of interest. Just being on this forever quest of discovering more, of finding your own truth, of living your own true life is for me the most authentic, inspiration for life. Whatever it is, just follow it.
You forgot your guilty pleasure.
No, that was my coffee.
Oh, okay. We've been through the coffee and the beer. Okay, right. You're let off.
No more coffee, and I'm pure. No more guilty pleasure. I'm just like.
I think that if I was
only during the pregnancy. She never drinks alcohol, by the way.
Guilty pleasure is cuddling with our daughter. Is that
possible? Quite possible.
What we both love to do every morning and every evening, just like. I think being parent completely changed your perspective on things and on life. And for us, it opened, door to another level of love and kind of physical pleasure. Just holding her on your lap is like another level of joy and sensuality. So we are there now.
Well, I think my guilty pleasure would probably be basketball if I was as tall as John. You must be at least 6'2", John, or something like that, right?
No, I'm just 6, but I was the third shortest in my team back then.
Wonderful chat to you, and you're doing something amazing there with the Singapore Shala. I hope to return someday. Had a wonderful time, and it's a lovely community you've built, and thanks to you, and hope to meet you in person again someday.
Looking forward to seeing you in person, and thank you for having us.
Thanks for coming on. It's been a nice chat finally. Have a good chat with you. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.